welcome to Excel. First thing I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna open Excel, of course. So just switch it on like that, or click on Excel from the Windows menu. Some of you might have Excel as a shortcut on the desktop or somewhere else, right? So usually when you open it for the first time, it will look something like this, a blank workbook, right? So you just open that. Next time you want to open a file that you already have, you can use File Open or Control O, and then open the file that you have open, right? But first thing we'll notice is that it looks fairly different. Excel looks very different from Microsoft Word. I'm just gonna open Microsoft Word as well. Right, a blank document in Microsoft Word, and we'll see that with regards to Microsoft Word, we have this zoom slider similar to Excel, right? Appearance with regards to that is similar. We have the zoom slider for Excel as well. But for Microsoft Word, what we have is we have this empty space around the piece of paper. So we have a virtual sheet, and then we have surrounding area kind of thing, which we don't have in Microsoft Excel. What we have in Microsoft Excel is just this vast amount of cells, and it expands from boundary to boundary. And there's so much of it, right? So we'll have a look at these. You'll notice that, for example, at the top here, we'll see these ABCs. These indicate what we call the columns, and these 1, 2, 3s indicate what we call the rows. And let's see how many columns we have, right? So I'm just gonna press Control and then arrow, right arrow, to go to the edge of this sheet. And this is the edge. Now we are at the edge. Now we can see a little bit of boundary on the right hand side, and it's until XFD, meaning it goes from A to Z. Then after Z is AA, then AZ, and then BA to BZ, and so on and so forth. Then AAA to AAZ until we get to XFD. So that's a lot, right? Now we're gonna check out and see how many rows we have. You can see 1 until 21 here. I'm gonna use Control and bottom arrow and get myself to 1 million something, 1.04 million rows, which is a lot. So I'm just gonna use Control arrow again, Control up arrow, and then Control left arrow, which gets me to the initial cell, which is the top left hand corner of this spreadsheet. So this whole thing is called a spreadsheet, right? If you open a file, it is usually called a book or workbook, right? But this is a sheet. As you can see, it's indicated here. This is sheet 1, right? You can always add many sheets, so it's different from Word where you just add a page break, right? Here within a workbook, you can add so many different sheets. You can just press on this plus sign. If you don't want it anymore, you can delete it. If you have something in your sheet, it will ask you for confirmation if you want to delete something. Let's say I have these 2 things, I want to delete it, right? It will actually ask, are you sure, right? Whereas if it's an empty sheet, usually it will just willingly delete it because, you know, there's nothing inside. Okay, other things that we'll notice as well is that we have these cells, right? And what are cells? It is an intersection between the column and the row. So we have B here, which is highlighted. It's slightly darker than the other letters, right? And then row 2, which is also highlighted, is slightly darker than the other numbers, right? So B and 2 are highlighted, and I am within that cell, this active cell, which has a bounding box which is clearer than the others. The others look like washed out gray color. This one has a distinct color. And we also have B2 within what we call the name box, right? So the name box is this box which looks like it's editable, in which it is editable, but only for certain kind of editing, which we'll discuss later, right? So we can see, hey, you know, it's so little, so how much can we actually put within this cell, as opposed to how much we can put within a Word document or a Word page. So this is so large, right? We can put so many things inside a page of Word, but how many can we actually put inside this, inside an Excel cell, right? So we're just gonna go back to Microsoft Word here and then just put a random text here. I did an experiment before, and I don't know if you remember about this random text thing, but random text is basically preset text in Microsoft Word, and I type something like this and I can get the text, right? 1375 means I only want one paragraph, but that one paragraph contains 375 sentences, right? So that brings me to 7 or 8 pages worth, right? So this page 8, as you can see here, right? And we're going to copy and paste everything from here. But before that, we're gonna go to the review tab and check how many characters there are, right? So there are 5,000 words and there are 32,000 characters with spaces, meaning the space is considered a character as well, right? So we have selected all of that, and I'm going to copy it, and then go back to Excel and then paste special, only paste the text, right? And we succeeded in putting everything within one cell. This is just one cell. Cell B2 contains all the text from here, all the 5,000 something words, all the 32,000 characters within one cell. If you go to cell C2, which is the cell beside B2, this is B2, right? If you go to C2, right, we have nothing. C2 is an empty cell, as is shown here, right? So this is how much info you can actually put within one cell. So this is to say that Excel is actually a very, very, very powerful tool in such a way that I think if you learn in most courses, for example, if you're learning in Computing Principles Excel here, I think we're barely scratching the surface. We're talking about maybe around 5% mastery or less. It's a very powerful tool. So what can we put inside these cells aside from text? Of course, as you can see, we call it spreadsheet, and spreadsheet is a term which is for accounting, so it's for calculation and so on. So it's like a maths book from our primary school and so on. And inside the cell, it is actually primed for numbers, meaning to say that if you put a number, it will understand it as a number, and it has a different kind of feel from text. Let's say I put text, right? 2, 1. As you can see here, text will be left aligned because that's usually how we see text. Numbers, on the other hand, is right aligned, which is usually how we see numbers. If we want to add 2 numbers and so on, right, we add from the right hand side rather than the left hand side. Okay, so what else can we put inside? Like I said, it's a very powerful tool. Whatever you put here, you notice by now, first and foremost, whatever you put here will also end up here. And what is this actually? What is this space? It's actually called the formula bar. I guess you can call it formula box as well, right? And this right here is called fx, which is a function. So you can input a function or a formula, not just a regular number. If you put a number which does not behave like a number, imagine numbers that don't behave like a number. For example, we have our IC number, we have phone numbers. These don't behave like numbers. You don't take 2 phone numbers and add them together, so they don't behave like numbers. So let's say we put someone's phone number 012345678 9, right? This is someone's phone number, right? And I press enter, or I go to a different cell. What happens is that Excel will just conveniently get rid of the 0, because 0 doesn't make sense. When you put a number, let's say for example your number is 19, no matter how many zeros you put in front of the 19 is insignificant. It doesn't really make sense. It doesn't add up to the value of the number. So when we press enter, we go to a different cell, Excel will just get rid of the 0, right? So this is because Excel is primed for numbers that you can use in the calculation, right? So we've already discussed how even if cells in Excel can look so small, when in reality they can contain so much. So looks can be deceiving, but sometimes we cannot escape from the fact that we would sometimes like to have the cell sized or resized according to its content. Let's say for example we have a bit of message inside a cell, yeah? So a bit of message inside a cell, right? So sometimes it can be fairly nice if we have the cell resized according to the content within, because sometimes we have some more message here, right? Sometimes we have this kind of situation, and it overlaps, and it's not so nice when it overlaps, so we want it to be resized. In the case of you wanting to resize your cell, there's two ways to actually do it. Basically, you want to go to the markings, the column marking or row markings, meaning if you want to resize the row, you go to the row markings 1 2 3. If you want to resize the column, meaning the width, you go to the column marking, right? And you notice that once we go there, you can see that now the cursor is in a fat plus sign. You go to the area of the column markings, the ABCs, right, and bring your cursor to in between the letters, the line, the vertical line, and you notice that your cursor turns from a fat white plus sign to a slender black plus sign with arrows on either side. Once you have this, you can click, and without letting go of the clicking, click and drag to the size that you want. Right, so that's one thing, that's one way of doing it. Or you can automatically do it. You just go there. Here, as you can see, C2 here is also does not accommodate the full sentence, some more message here, right? So if you want to make it really quickly, what you can do is you can just go there, turn it into that slender plus sign with arrows on either side, and then just double click, right? So this automatically will resize the cell. Aside from that, the cell is treated as almost like a file on its own, meaning if you copy and paste things inside, everything inside will be replaced with the new thing that you pasted, right? So if you want to paste or edit something in between the content of a cell, what you can do is, one, you can click on the cell and then edit within the formula bar, right, and outside, right? That's one way of doing it. Or in my case, I can double click here, for example, a message. So inside a cell, right, I want to edit and put n outside, between inside and so I can just go there and then double click, right? Then I'm in editing mode, right? So when you're in editing mode, you'll be able to edit the contents of a cell. When you're in normal mode like this, if you click on a cell, it's a replacement, meaning to say that you type something, it will replace the content of the cell. Okay, other things that you'll notice as well, the thing that you copy and paste must be in the same form, meaning you cannot copy a cell and then put it as a content, right? You won't be able to do that. So if you want a content, you copy the content, then you can put it as a content, right? Copy and pasting, right? So other than that, as you can see, when a cell is activated, at the bottom right hand corner of that active cell, you will see a dot, a very small square dot, right? And that is called the fill handler. And you can activate the fill handler by bringing your cursor there. When you bring your cursor there, again from a fat white plus sign, you bring it there, it becomes this thin small black plus sign, right? Thereby activating the fill handler. What does the fill handler do? Basically, it fills things like copying and pasting. Let's say, for example, I have this message, I want to copy and paste it across this column, right, until maybe 12, until B12, right? So I just bring my cursor there, turn it into that small plus sign, and then click and drag it, right? And then I basically just copy and paste, right? So when you have cells which are right next to each other and you want to copy the content, you can just use the fill handler. It works the same ways, to the side, to the bottom, or you can drag it upwards, right? You can click it like this, you can drag it upwards, right? So it works the same, left, right, bottom and top. Whereas if you want to copy and paste within select cells, you can do that as well, right? You can select a cell, click, and then press Control and then continue clicking. By using this, basically what I'm doing is I'm selecting specific cells. It's like playing around with Excel, right? Now once I've done this, I can Control V or paste, right? So paste. So I have these messages in different cells, so that works too. Right, so this is just copying and pasting within Excel, right? Aside from that, we have this, again I say we have this fill handler. It doesn't just work for messages, of course, you can use it for number, right? You can also use it for formulas and etc. Let's say for example we have some numbers here. And we put a formula here, you can actually get it from here, right? So it's a sum formula, right? So this is a formula that actually adds two up, sum D4 and D5. It is smart enough to know that it's D4 and D5 because these are the cells which are right next to each other, or right on top and at the bottom of each other. So it knows that these are the cells that we want to sum up, right? So anyhow, sum is a formula, and I can click and drag this formula across as well, right? I can click and drag, effectively copying and pasting the formula, right? So now I have it changing accordingly. Now this is sum D4 D5 on D6. I'm just going to delete this cell so you can easily see, right? So this is A6, and A6 is sum A4 to A5, right? When we click and drag or copy and paste, right, the fill handler, what happens is that it will copy the formula but relatively, meaning when it goes to B6 it changes to B4 and B5, right? When it goes to C6 it changes to C4 and C5. So this is called relative referencing, which we'll actually discuss again some more later, referencing, right? And this is how Excel works. So click and drag. Aside from that, the fill handler also works for series. What is a series? For example, let's say today is Wednesday, right? So Wednesday is a day in a series of 7 days. So when you click and drag, Excel is smart enough to fill the other days. It can just be wed, right? That works too. Or it can be, let's say, month. So January is a month in a series of 12 months. You can click and drag. Or you can make a series, meaning if you just type a random number like this, right, Excel will just treat it as a number. You click and drag, it will just copy that, right? But you can treat something as a series by doing something like this, 1 and 2, for example. So 2 comes right after 1. When you select both and then you click and drag, Excel will actually fill out the other numbers, 3, 4, 5, and so on and so forth. It treats 1 and 2 selected together as a series. Previously we actually put formulas here, right? And by default Excel will actually show the result of this formula, meaning what's the result of adding the two numbers up. Sum is basically adding the two numbers. Sum up these two numbers or sum up these many numbers. You can actually sum up many numbers like this, for example, right? So here we sum up L2 until L14 and we put it inside L15, right? So this is summing up all those numbers together. But sometimes we want to see our formula, meaning say that I don't want to see the number, the result of the formula. I want to see my formula just in case I did something wrong or something like that. So in order to do this, what you do is you just press Control and this thin wavy line. It looks something like this, right? So just press Control and then this thing on your keyboard and you'll be able to see your formula, right? So here like this, for example, so I press that Control and this button, right? And then I can press it again and return back to normal viewing. So this is formula view. This is normal view where I can see the numbers and the result of calculation. We're going to explore further about formatting in Microsoft Excel. I would like to believe that at one point or another you will be able to comfortably figure your way around Microsoft Excel. But in terms of the starting point, you might need a few more tips and tricks, so to speak, or at least the basics of controlling your spreadsheet, right? And for this purpose, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use this random text created in Microsoft Word and then just post it within Microsoft Excel, right? When we choose and copy something like this, when we select and copy something like this, a lot of times when we paste it inside Excel, it will actually paste it within different cells, meaning it will end up with something like this, right? So that's when I paste it, right? So I have these kinds of things. Let's say, for example, we made a mistake. There's actually another, maybe there's some number actually we want to insert in between, right? So there's some number, 1, 7, 2, 15, and so on. So we have some numbers that we want to insert in between, right? In reality, within Excel, you can actually easily insert and edit out the rows and columns. For example, I want to edit, in between click insert and to change, I want to insert these numbers. There are several ways of doing it. I can right click and insert, and then copy these and then paste it here. Right, insert, which means insert a row, right, and then copy these. Right? When you paste, there are actually several versions of pasting. This is number. This is just the values, meaning you don't care about the formatting and any other thing. This is formulas. Copy and paste the formulas. And then there's only formatting. You can only choose the formatting and so on and so forth. So the different versions of pasting, which you can explore, because sometimes you wanna, let's say for example, this has a different kind of formatting, like let's say currency or something, and you want this, you only want the formatting to be copied throughout. So what you can do is you can just copy, right, and then only paste the formatting. So there are different versions of pasting, just so you know, but the default is copy and paste all, right? So the default is all. So when I copy and paste this, I can just straight ahead copy and paste the whole thing, right? So that's one way of doing it. That's one way of doing it. Or you can also do it like this, right? Just now what we did was we insert the rows, right? You can also insert columns and etc. if you want, right? Insert, right? They will actually insert a column, right? So in between and so on and so forth. So this was something that I was a bit troubled with in the past, because sometimes you have done so much and then alamak, actually I want to insert something here. So what do I do? Do I have to undo everything? Do I have to cut everything and then put it in a different cell and so on and so forth? In reality, you can just insert a row or a column in order to edit things. So that's one way of doing it. You can also alamak, you don't need this row, you don't need the column, you can always delete it, right? Delete and delete, and so on and so forth, right? So that was one way to do it, meaning we insert and then we copy or cut and then paste it there. You can also do something like this. You can also just copy or cut immediately like this, just cut it and then go to the parts where you want to insert this row. Basically, I just cut this whole row and then I can go wherever I want to insert it. Let's say I want to insert it between click insert and to change. I just go to change and then right click and then insert cut cells, right? So there, I actually put it over there. So this is a little bit on formatting and manipulation of your spreadsheet, right? We talked about adding more sheets, but we didn't actually talk about renaming them. Actually, you can rename the sheets, which makes it easier for you to navigate from one point to another. Like for example, this sheet contains all text, so you can either double click on the name or right click and choose rename, right, and then just rename the sheet. Right? There are some rules as to naming and renaming, the same rules that apply for folders and everything in Windows, meaning to say that there will be rules such as you cannot use certain symbols. There might also be rules here, if I'm not mistaken, that you cannot use space. I'll try space here. Tab, try, and then spacebar space. I don't think it will allow that. Now the later version of Microsoft Excel allows space in terms of the naming. Right, so I'm just gonna delete that because I don't need it. Okay, so that is with regards to inserting, deleting columns and rows, renaming sheet, right? As well, you'll notice that, for example, here we have so much text, right? Sometimes it's desirable to combine a few cells together. So you want your table to appear this way. You have this first row is just number, and then the second row is just text, and you want the text in one cell instead of many cells like this, instead of one cell and then the rest of the cells are empty. So you can actually merge these cells, right? You can merge these cells. So this is the button for merging, merge and center. The default is all the text will be centered, right? So then you can resize it. So there are several options. You can resize it, or you can merge some more. I mean, you can take this and then select everything here and then merge it. That works too, right? Here I'm choosing to resize it, but there's a bit of a problem. How now? The because the text is centered, right? You can make it left align or right align, but you won't be able to see anything. You won't be able to see everything, even though there might be enough space for everything, right? So what you do is you can actually click on this. This is wrap text, right? So you click on that, and you'll be able to wrap it, and hence having this kind of layout. So you can see that we have all the text within one cell, right? Okay, so with regards to these numbers, right, we can format it further. The default formatting is general, as you can see here, right? But you can always change it either by typing something that makes sense to be changed. For example, if you write something like this, right, Excel will usually think that this might be a date, right, and it will actually change. Usually it would by default change it, for example, like that, right? 11 February, right? So by typing something which is indicative of a particular value, we might do like an indirect suggestion to Excel that you might want to change the formatting here, right? But otherwise, you can always change the formatting here as well. So if you want to, you can have the numbers having different kinds of appearance depending on your needs. Like for example, if you want the numbers to be currency, you can have it as currency, right? Or if you want it as right, so currency appears like this, right? So you can see that it's not aligned. The RM here is not aligned, right? If you want it to align, you can use accounting. Accounting actually aligns everything like this, because usually we want to see the numbers for accounting and so on and so forth. And then there are other different versions of formatting, like this general, number, currency, accounting, short date, and so on and so forth. So what I encourage you to do is just to try out these different formatting and see how they work, right? And what they are for, that kind of thing. I just type, in reality, I type 11/2. Right, this is what I typed, and then I press enter or go to a different cell. I'll just go to a different cell, right? As you can see, not only is this changed to 11 February, if you go back to the cell, the formula bar actually shows 11/2/2021, meaning 11 February 2021, right? You can customize this further by right clicking on the cell and then choosing format cells. And from format cells, you can customize further. For example, if it's a date, you can show it the way that you want to. Right, so this is custom formatting, and again, this can be useful. For example, if you're not in Malaysia, you're from somewhere else, and you want the currency to be different, again, you can format cells and choose the symbol. Right? So you can change it from here. There's English, for example. You're from England, or you're from the UK, and you use pound sterling, and you want that symbol, and so on and so forth. Then we have things such as percentage, and then comma. If you have a very long number, we can put this comma and show the number in that format. We can increase or decrease decimal if you want. We talked about, if it's a phone number, or if it's a 19 like this, it will get rid of the 19. Same goes if you put 19.000. A lot of times it will get rid of the 3 zeros, the decimal points. But if you want it to appear, you can have it appear, right? Or you can decrease decimal. Or if by any chance you wanna show the number exactly as it is, for example 00019, right? You can make it into a non-number, right? So what you do is you just put apostrophe and then your number, right? So it becomes like that. But as you can see, now it is left aligned, which shows that it is no longer a number, meaning it's no longer the type of digits that you can do calculations with is a type of text or something. It's treated as text, right? Although the formatting here says number, right? So you can do further formatting here. And you'll also notice as well that there's actually lots more over here on the home tab, but I don't want to approach this. I don't want to approach the usage of Excel based on the tab in the ribbon, right? So instead of focusing on this tab, what I can do, I think it's better to focus on the use case. When you say that in terms of Excel, what can you use it for? And then maybe you can go from tab to tab. We can jump from tab to tab. So for this particular purpose, you can go to home tab, do this, and then you go to insert tab. I would like to approach it that way, because like I said, with regards to this particular subject, computing principles and assessment for lab, right, what we do is we actually assess you on certain proficiency in using Word and Excel, right? So I would like to focus on that, as well as the use case, meaning some formulas which are useful and so on and so forth. And maybe we can go to conditional formulas, if and whatnot, before we go for more towards data analytics, right? Data visualization and then data analytics, right? So instead of going home tab, what do you have? Insert tab, what do you have? We actually go to use case. What can you use Excel for? And this is how you can do it.